Hi people on Earth! In my 9 years of teaching, I've worked with a pretty wide range of books in my classrooms. Things from classics like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn to contemporary novels like Sherman Alexie's Flight. I've taught of Mice and Men, and I've also taught Maus. I love working with what I call the dystopian trinity, which is 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 and Brave New World. It's a dynamic range of styles and content, but they all have something in common. Someone at some time has banned these books for some reason. The idea of banned books is kind of fascinating. I think they say a lot about us and all of humanity in and of itself. But what is it about a book that would make somebody want to restrict every other person's right to read it for themselves? From the list of last year's top 10 most challenged books, the answer seems to boil down to sex or sexual content, offensive language, religious viewpoints, and a general sense that the book isn't suited for young readers. Now, to ask whether or not these are valid reasons to ban a book is not really as important as why are we so touchy about these topics? I feel that when it comes to challenging content, we should really be asking ourselves, what do these books teach us about these challenging issues? Books and other media are powerful, and most teachers spend a bunch of their energy just trying to get people to recognize that. The thoughtfulness distilled on the page or even on the screen can completely overthrow a person's perception on the world. And maybe that's why some people are worried about questionable content delivered to younger minds. It makes some sense. But I think that taking these books away from people is far more damaging than any of the content itself. To help illustrate this, let's think about the Defense Against the Dark Arts from the world of Harry Potter. So in Harry Potter, students at Hogwarts have to take this class to defend themselves against the darkness of the world. They have to confront this darkness personally in order to grow into more capable students and magic practitioners. It's not uncommon for these students to encounter real and scary stuff in class, things that in any other context might really hurt them or maybe even kill them. But that's exactly the point. They're not confronting these beasts and charms and darkness on their own. They're being supervised. They're being taught what to do if they find themselves in these situations and how to get out of it alive. So teaching English is often like teaching the Defense Against the Dark Arts. Whereas many see the questionable content as something unsuitable for their children or something that may damage them in some way, or as something that's just kind of uncomfortable, I would argue that there's a darkness in the world that has to be explored. And it has to be explored in a safe environment. Whether it's violence or sex or profanity or subversive ideology, students can either discover the craziness of life on their own, or they can do it with some kind of guide to help them make sense of it. There is no doubt that the issues raised in literature, especially that in banned literature, are not suitable for certain ages. But to throw students into a world without teaching them something about reality is just as dangerous. Students need to learn about what happens when rules disappear and nobody follows the social contract. They need to know what it feels like to have the world set against you and your people. They need to know what's at stake when we forget our humanity and all of its complexity. They need to know that all of life happens, all of it. All anger and hatred and death and chaos and racism, injustice, sex, genocide, political unrest, revolution, but also hope and healing and deconstruction and reconstruction. Stories are how we learn about life without the trauma of having to live through it. The darkness in the pages we read are not there to entice us to misdeeds, but to warn us that all life exists. It may make us uncomfortable, it may make us fearful, but we need it. We need a defense against many of the realities of our world, and books allow that. Neil Gaiman says that fairy tales are more than true, not because they teach us that dragons exist, but because they teach us that they can be beaten. That's the joy of this kind of learning. It's not to pretend like the whole world is your magic fairy tale land where you get to be the princess and everything works out for you. Instead, it teaches us that it's dangerous, that there's lots of craziness out there, but you have the strength and you have the way to overcome it. What are your favorite stories? What are the stories that help you understand life and the darkness and how you can overcome it? Leave comments down below. Let's have a conversation about that. And I'll see you next time. And more than that, I think what